could we start the recording? Great. So, Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Welcome to our Ingleside, our Hevrat Shalom service that would normally be at Ingleside, but is on Zoom. And I'm Rabba Arlene with cantoral soloist Joan Wolf. We're happy to be with you this Shabbat. This is a actually maybe could whoever is host, could you make me co-host, please? So I can mute and unmute people as needed. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, great. So this is a meaningful Shabbat in a couple ways. First of all, Shabbat is always meaningful. But also, this is our last meeting as a congregation in 2021. And in addition to that, tonight, the Shabbat, we finish the book of Genesis, of Breshit. So it seems, some nice symmetry that we're having our last meeting of the year, and in it, we're going to celebrate the ending of one of the books of Torah. And it's all about endings and new beginnings. So we shall begin with Shalom Aleichem on page 84. And with Shalom Aleichem, we are welcoming in the Shabbat angels who guide us as we go through Shabbat in the week ahead.
Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech, Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Boachem leshalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon. Mi melech malchei hamlachim hakadosh Baruch Hu. Baruch Hu ni leshalom, malchei hashalom, malchei elyon. Mi melech malchei hamlachim hakadosh Baruch Hu. Tzedechem leshalom, malchei hashalom, malchei elyon. Mi melech malchei hamlachim hakadosh Baruch Hu.
Thank you. We will now turn back in our books to page 39 for Lechu Neranana, which is one of the Psalms that we read on Shabbat. Normally what we do on Kabbalat Shabbat is we read 6 Psalms, each representing one day of the week. And then we enter into Shabbat with Lecha Dodi. For us, we don't do the traditional service, but what we're doing is we're welcoming. We're instead of having a psalm for each day of the week, we are acknowledging and welcoming everyone who's present, each other and the angels, and eventually the Shabbat Queen.
Lechu neranena, lechu neranena, lechu neranena l'Adonai. Lechu neranena, lechu neranena, lechu neranena l'Adonai.
Bonnie, will you please read the English for us on page 39 there at the bottom?
Come, let us sing to the Eternal One. Let our song ring out to our sheltering rock. Let us come before God with thanksgiving, our voices loud with song. For great are you, Eternal One, high above the gods that are worshipped. In your hands are the depths of the earth. Yours are the mountain peaks. You made the sea, it is yours. The dry land is the work of your hands. You are our guard and our shepherd. We are your people and your flock. If only today we would listen to your voice.
Thank you. We turn to page 46 now for Lecha Dodi as we welcome in the Shabbat Kala, the Shabbat bride.
Lecha lecha dodi, likrat kala, penei Shabbat nekabla. Lecha lecha dodi, likrat kala, penei Shabbat nekabla. Shamor v'zachor b'dibur echad, hishmianu el hamyuchad, Adonai echad u'shemo echad. L'shem ultiferet v'nichtchila la 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 lecha dodi, likrat kala, penei Shabbat nekabla. Lecha dodi, likrat kala, penei Shabbat nekabla. Likrat Shabbat lechu v'nilcha, כי היא מקור הברכה, מראש מקדם נסוכה, סוף מעשה במחשבה תחילה לה 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 לה, לך דודי לקראת קלה, פני שבת נקבלה, לך דודי לקראת קלה, פני שבת נקבלה, התעוררי, כי באורך קומי אורי, שיר דברי, כבוד אדוני עלייך נגלה, לה 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 לה, לך דודי לקראת קלה, פני שבת נקבלה, לך דודי לקראת קלה, פני שבת נקבלה. בואי ושלום עטרת בלה, גם בשמחה ובצולה, תוך אמונה המסגולה. בואי חלה, לה 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 לה, לך דודי לקראת קלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת קלה, פני שבת נקבלה, לה 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 לה, לך דודי לקראת קלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת קלה, פני שבת נקבלה.
Sorry, I thought I was unmuted. Can you hear me now? 2 years of doing this and I still can't unmute myself. We will continue with Sadiq Katamar. Actually, it's an appropriate thing that I couldn't unmute myself, because what's Sadiq Katamar about? If you look at the English on the top of page 48, it's talking actually about aging. The righteous shall flourish like palms, grow tall like cedars in Lebanon. Rooted in the house of their God, they shall be ever fresh and green, proclaiming that God is just, my rock, in whom no wrong is found. It's not an exact translation, because in the Hebrew itself, it's basically saying that you can live a long time and still have a life that has meaning, but you're going to make mistakes. So see, I am modeling what our prayers are talking about. And with that, Joan, please, Tzadika Tamar.
Tzadika Tamar yifrach ke'erez balvanon yizkeh shetulim bevet Adonai bechatzrot Eloheinu yafrichu od yenuvun beseva deshenim verananim yiyu להגיד כי ישר אדוני צורי ולא עוולתה בו.
So beautiful. David, would you read for us the English at the bottom of page 48 and those couple lines there on page 49? You're muted. Yeah. There you go.
Okay. The Eternal One is enthroned, robed in grandeur. The Eternal One is robed, girded with strength. The one who founded the solid earth to be unmoving. Ageless is your throne, endless your being. The oceans cry out, Eternal God. The oceans cry out their thunder. The oceans rage in their fury. But greater than the thunder of the torrents, mightier than the breakers of the sea, is the majesty of God on high. Your law stands firm, and in your temple, O eternal God, holiness abides to the end of time.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Joan will now do the Chatzi Kaddish on page 49.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה, בעמל דברה חירותי ומחמכותי, בחייכון ויומכון, ובחיי לכל בית ישראל, בעגלה בעגלה, ובזמן קריב ויאמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מבורך, לעולם לעולם מעלמיה, יתברך, יתברך ויתברך, ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה, ויתהלל שמי לקודשה ברכו. לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, דעה מהירן בעלמה, ואמרו Amen.
Thank you. We'll now turn to page 50. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So because we don't have a minyan, we will not do the Baruch Hu. So we're going to go straight to the English at the bottom of page 50. Kay, would you be willing to read the English on page 50? Steve, could you unmute? Can there we go.
Okay. Starting with we praise you.
Yes.
Okay. We praise you, eternal God, sovereign of the universe, whose word brings on the evening. With wisdom, you open up heaven's gates, and with understanding, you make the ages pass and the seasons alternate. Your will controls the stars as they travel through the skies. You are creator of day and night, rolling light away from darkness and darkness from light. You cause day to pass and bring on the night, separating day from night. You command the hosts of heavens. May the living and eternal God rule us always to the end of time. We praise you, O God, whose word makes evening fall.
Baruch atah Adonai ha'ma'ariv ha'ravim. Ahavat Olam is on page 51, and it talks about how God loves us with an everlasting love.
אהבת עולם בית ישראל עמך אהבת תורה ומצוות חוקים ומשפטים אותנו למדת על כן אדוני אלוהינו בשוכבנו ובקומנו נשיח בחוקיך ונשמח בדברי תורתך ובמצוותיך לעולם ועד, כי הם חיינו ואורך ימינו, ובהם יומם ולילה.
ואהבתך אל תסיר ממנו לעולמים, ברוך אתה אדוני, אוהב עמו ישראל. Susan, would you read the English right after this on page 51?
Okay. Unending is your love for your people, the house of Israel, Torah and mitzvot. Laws and precepts have you taught us. Therefore, O God, when we lie down and when we rise up, we will meditate on your laws and rejoice in your Torah and mitzvot forever. Day and night we will reflect on them, for they are our life and the length of our days. Then your love shall never depart from our hearts. We praise you, O God. You love your people, Israel.
Thank you. And now we say the Shema, and then we'll have the V'ahavta, where we're continuing this theme of love and relationship and loyalty.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem Kivud Malchuto Leolam Vaed.
We turn to page 52. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם, אני אדוני אלוהיכם. אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים, אני אדוני אלוהיכם. Larry, would you read the English there on the bottom of page 52? The English of the V'ahavta.
You shall love your eternal God with all your heart, with all your mind, with all your being. Set these words which I command you this day upon your heart. Teach them faithfully to your children. Speak of them in your home and on your way, when you lie down and when you rise up. Bind them as a sign upon your hand. Let them be symbols before your eyes. Inscribe them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. Be mindful of all my mitzvot and do them. So shall you consecrate yourselves to your God. I am your eternal God who led you out of Egypt to be your God. I am your eternal God.
Yes, can you hear me? Yes, yay. So these words are even more poignant, especially this last line that Larry just read, I am your eternal God who led you out of Egypt to be your God. Because, as I said, this week, this Shabbos, tonight, we are ending the book of Genesis. And next week, we begin Shmot. We begin the book of Exodus, which begins, and there arose in Egypt a Pharaoh who did not know Joseph. And thus begins our descent into slavery, which culminates in God leading us out of Egypt. So it's kind of interesting if you can place yourself in the cycle of the Torah readings, then you can pick up on these hints and these allusions to what was going on in the Torah and what we're reading right now and what we're saying in the prayers, and then figure out how that impacts your life. It's It's a good exercise to work on for yourself. So we're at the bottom of page 53. When your children witnessed your power, they extolled you and gave you thanks. Willingly they enthroned you, and full of joy, Moses, Miriam, and all Israel sang this song.
מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נדר בקודש, נורא תהילות, עושה פלא, עושה פלא. מלכותך ראו בניך, בוקע הים לפני משה, זה אלי. אנו ואמרו אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד.
Steve, would you read for us the English in the middle of page 54?
No, okay.
Who is like you, Eternal One, among the gods that are worshipped? Who is like you, majestic in holiness, awesome in splendor, doing wonders? In their escape from the sea, your children saw your sovereign might displayed. This is my God, they cried. The Eternal will reign forever and ever. And it has been said, the Eternal One delivered Jacob and redeemed us from the hand of one stronger than ourselves. We praise you, O God, Redeemer of Israel.
Thank you. We're now at the bottom of page 54, and Joan will sing for us the beginning of Hashkivenu.
השכיבנו אדוני אלוהינו לשלום והעמידנו מלכנו לחיים. השכיבנו אדוני אלוהינו לשלום והעמידנו מלכנו לחיים.
David, would you read the top of page 55?
Okay. Grant that we may lie down in peace, eternal God, and raise us up, O sovereign, to life renewed. Spread over us the shelter of your peace. Guide us with your good counsel, and for your name's sake, be our help. Shield us from hatred and plague. Keep us from war and famine and anguish. Subdue our inclination to evil. O God, our guardian and helper, our gracious and merciful sovereign, give us refuge in the shadow of your wings. O guard our coming and our going, that now and always we have life and peace. We praise you, O God, whose shelter of peace is spread over us, over all your people Israel, and over Jerusalem.
Thank you. And we're now at towards the bottom of page 55 for Vishamru, where we are reminded of the Brit, of the covenant between God and the people Israel, that God created the world in 6 days and rested on the seventh day, on Shabbat, and so too do we rest on the seventh day.
ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל אותי לעולם, אותי לעולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. וביום השביעי, שבת ויהי נפש, שבת ויהי נפש, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם.
Thank you. It never feels like it's Shabbos until we sing the Shamru. We'll now turn to page 56 for the Tefillah, or the Amidah. And in this prayer, we approach God with Zchut Avot, using the merit of our ancestors, saying, God, you remember that you had these special relationships with the matriarchs and the patriarchs. So too can you have this relationship with us. And just as we're reminding God of that, we're reminding ourselves that if we choose to have such a relationship with God, we have the opportunity and we have that on which to model this relationship. And it's very much linked to this week's Torah portion, because Jacob dies in this week's Torah portion and blesses all of his children, and we are all blessed in the names of our ancestors. So there's a direct link between the beginning of this prayer and this week's Torah portion. So I'm going to chant the Hebrew on pages 56 and 57. Please chant along with me, or read the English, or just kind of say your own words to God as I'm chanting. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, v'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, v'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol Hagibur v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim v'Konei Hakol, v'Zocher Chasdei Avot v'Imaot, ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם למען שמו באהבה, מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן. ברוך אתה אדוני מגן אברהם ועזרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי מתים אתה, רב להושיע, מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיי הכל ברחמים רבים. סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות, ומדומה לך, מלך ממית ומחיה, ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה להחיות הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני מחיי hakol. We turn now to page 60 for the Ritzei. And as our cantoral soloist Joan is chanting the Ritzei, I'd like to invite each of you to think about what you are grateful for in this past year and what you are looking forward to in the year ahead. So this is a moment of gratitude.
Ritzei Adonai Eloheinu be'amecha Yisrael utefilatam be'ahava תקבל ותהי לרצון תמיד עבודת ישראל ישראל עמך ברוך אתה Adonai she'otecha levadecha be'yira navot be'yira navod.
And we'll conclude the Amidah with Shalom Rav on page 63. And this is a time for, as Joan is chanting this beautiful prayer, to sing along and keep in mind and in your hearts and souls this deep, intense prayer for peace in the year to come.
Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Ki atahu melech adon lechol hashalom. Ki atahu melech adon שלכל השלום, שלום רב על ישראל עמך, תשים לעולם. שלום רב על ישראל עמך, תשים לעולם. וטוב בעיניך לברך את עמך ישראל, בכל עת ובכל שעה, בשלומך. שלום רב על ישראל עמך, תשים לעולם. שלום רב על ישראל עמך, תשים לעולם.
And we'll continue with Oseh Shalom, reinforcing this desire for peace. It's on the bottom of page 64.
Oseh Shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imru, imru, Amen. Ya'aseh shalom, ya'aseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Ya'aseh shalom, ya'aseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Ya'aseh shalom, ya'aseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Ya'aseh shalom, ya'aseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Ya'aseh shalom, ya'aseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael.
May the one who ordains peace in the universe bring peace to us, to all Israel, and to all who dwell on earth. And let us say, Amen. So, some words of Torah. You can sit back and relax. I'm just opening to my right page here. Okay. So, as I said, this week's Torah portion, Parshat Vayechi, is the last parsha, the last portion in the book of Genesis. In this parsha, we find Jacob on his deathbed, and he's desirous of blessing his sons. Now, this is the first instance in the Torah where someone gets sick and knows that their death is approaching. Prior to this point in the Torah, when someone's death is mentioned, it says, and so is old, and they died. And that was about it. So the commentaries say that Jacob actually requested of God that he become ill before he dies, and that this would be the sign to him that his death was approaching, and thereby he would be given time to say goodbye to his sons and to bless them. Now, in Genesis chapter 48, verse 1, Joseph finds out that Jacob was sick. Now, if we recall, the Israelites had been given this beautiful arable portion of land in Goshen, which was kind of a far off part of the land of Egypt. It was really good for sheep and grazing the sheep. And so Jacob was living there with his sons, but Joseph was still in we'll call it the nation's capital, as he was number 2 in the land. So he had governmental responsibilities. So at some point, Joseph hears that Jacob is ill. And the Torah then says that Joseph then took his 2 sons with him, presumably to bring them to see Jacob, but actually nowhere does it say where they're actually going. Now, when Joseph and his sons actually get to Jacob, Jacob is strengthened and he sits up in bed and he tells Joseph that his 2 sons would now be considered as if they were Jacob's sons and will get a portion in the land of Israel, just like all of Joseph's brothers. Now, interestingly, as I mentioned, the Torah doesn't say that Joseph brought his sons to Jacob, but that Joseph took his sons with him. So what does this mean? Well, what it could mean is that not only did Joseph bring his sons physically with him to go visit his father Jacob, and presumably to say goodbye, but also that Joseph kept his sons close to himself spiritually, so that they wouldn't be spiritually influenced by their non-Jewish surroundings. Jacob recognized this, which is why he felt strengthened when Joseph and his sons arrived at his bedside. Now, with the act of Jacob claiming his grandsons as his own, he makes sure to stress that it was these 2 sons who were born in Egypt. Their greatness and Joseph's greatness was that they identified and lived as, well, we'll call them Jews. At the time it was Israelites, but that they lived as Jews despite the fact that they were living in Egypt. And finally, although when he went to bless the grandsons, and his hands were actually on the 2 grandsons, his blessing was that all of Joseph's children and this is key, anyone who has to live in a non-Jewish world, meaning us, should be protected throughout history so that we can all be proudly called the children of Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov and Jacob. To me, it's a very cool thing that in the Torah, there is a blessing that's very specifically given, not just to the 2 people who are being blessed, but to all of us who come after. So, and the Torah says, so he blessed them that day, saying, by you shall Israel invoke blessing, saying, God made you like Ephraim and Manasseh. And in Hebrew, that is Yisimcha Elohim ke'Ephraim u'Manasseh. And if it sounds familiar, it's because that is the blessing that we say over our children, over our sons on Friday nights. Now, so Jews all over the world for countless generations have been blessing their children in this way on Shabbat and before Yom Kippur. I bless our children this way on every holiday. My kids call me an equal opportunity blesser because I will bless them at any opportunity that arises, and I will make up opportunities to bless them as well. Now, what is so special about Ephraim and Manasseh, Joseph's children? Well, there's a lot of different ideas about this. First of all, the rabbis say they didn't assimilate. These were the sons of an important man, one of the most important men in Egypt. They lived for most of their lives apart from any other Jewish people, any other Israelites, yet they kept to their heritage. So this is a blessing to forestall assimilation. This is a blessing that says that you can be successful and fulfilled regardless of where you live and what's going on around you, and you still can remain Jewish. And actually, one of the other reasons I like that they give for why we bless after Ephraim and Manasseh is because we're taught that Ephraim and Manasseh were two brothers who got along and they loved each other. And if you think back to all the dysfunctional family happenings in the whole book of Genesis, you do not find many siblings who actually get along and love each other. So it's a beautiful thing that the rabbis chose these two siblings to bless our offspring with throughout the generations. Now, as I said, this is the last Shabbat of the book of Genesis, and I am going to chant for us the last several verses of the book of Genesis. And at the end, I'll do the Hebrew and then the English, and then I'm going to say the traditional words that we say when we finish a book of Torah, which is Chazak, Chazak, V'nit Chazek. So I'm chanting from chapter 50, verses 24 to 26, the three last verses in the book of Genesis. Vayomer Yosef el Echav Anochi met ve'Elohim pakod yifkod etchem ve'he'aleh etchem min ha'aretz azot al ha'aretz asher nishba li'Avraham li'Yitzchak li'Yakov vayishba Yosef et bnei Yisrael lemor Pakod yifkod Elohim etchem ve'ha'alitem et atzmotai mizeh vayamot Yosef ben 110 shanim vayachantu oto vayisem ba'aron b'Mitzrayim. At length Joseph said to his brothers, I am about to die. God will surely take notice of you and bring you up from this land to the land that God promised an oath to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob. So Joseph made the sons of Israel swear, saying, when God has taken notice of you, you shall carry up my bones from here. Joseph died at the age of 110 years, and he was embalmed and placed in a coffin in Egypt. And you can repeat after me, Chazak, Chazak, v'nitchazek. Chazak, Chazak, v'nitchazek. Be strong, and we will strengthen one another. So we finished the book of Genesis, and we see that Joseph has died, and we know that things are going to irrevocably change for our people. And next week we will begin the story of our descent into slavery and ultimately our rescue from slavery and the Exodus. So, are there any comments or questions or thoughts? Okay. So then we will turn to page 148 for Aleinu.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא, שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוסד ארץ, ומושב יקרו בשמיים ממעל, ושכינתו זו בגובהי מרומים. הוא אלוהינו אין עוד, אמת מלכנו אפס זולתו, ככתוב בתורתו, וידעת היום והשבות אל לבביך, כי אדוני הוא על אלוהים בשמיים ממעל, ועל הארץ מתחת אין עוד. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד.
We're now going to say the prayer for healing, which was adapted by Debbie Freeman and Drora Settel. I believe it's in the back of your booklets, of your books. Is there any?
Sorry.
I was just going to ask if anyone has the any names of people who they would like to bring into our sacred space in order to send some extra blessings of healing to them. And then we will keep in mind as we sing this prayer, all those who in our family and our friends who are ill, all those who live at Brightview, and all those who work at Brightview to help everyone else remain safe and healthy.
מי שברך אבותינו מקור הברכה לאמותינו, may the source of strength who blessed the ones before us help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Mi sheberach imotenu מקור הברכה לאבותינו. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen.
I just realized that I said we should think about all the people who are living at Brightview. I do too many services in one day. We'll think about all those and continue to send blessings of healing to all those living at Ingleside and in all the Ingleside buildings, and also the staff working there. Though there is a connection, because the woman who used to be the executive director at Ingleside is now the executive director at Brightview. So, you know, there's like connections everywhere. Another thing I wanted to say for those of you who might be watching the recording on YouTube, be it tomorrow on Shabbat or another day this week, if you have any thoughts or questions about maybe the teaching that I gave or just about anything else, please feel free to send me an email, and I would love to enter into a conversation with you. We will now turn to page, what page is it? Page 154 for Mourner's Kaddish. Steve, do you have a yurtzeit list, or is that with Jean who, no, we don't have a yurtzeit list. Does anyone have a yurtzeit in this week, this Shabbos, or actually in the weeks ahead until we meet again for services? Okay, so
Arlene, Rabbi, I have the yard site list file. If you wait a minute, I could pull it up and read it. But it'll take me a few minutes.
I think that's okay.
Okay.
What we could do if we wanted is we could include that with the recording at the end. We could list the names. No, we won't do that. We will just keep everyone in our hearts and souls. And what we could do is
Okay.
next month, we, both us and then also Rabbi Peter, can actually include this month's Yurtzeit list with next month, if that would make sense.
Rabbi, we can do what you suggested, because Susan, when you have the YouTube, we can just implant the Yurtzeit list, include the Yurtzeit list as an attachment.
So who should I send it to?
We'll talk after.
Okay.
Okay.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Susan's a volunteer, but she's a wonderful volunteer.
So Mourner's Kaddish, if you are in mourning, if you have a Yurtzeit in the next few weeks, or if it is your custom to say Mourner's Kaddish, I invite you to do so with me now. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, be'olma divrach yirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon v'yomechon uv'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael, ba'agala uv'izman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevorach le'olam olomei olmaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yithadar v'yitale v'yitalal shmei dukudusha b'rechu. Le'elam min kol birchata v'shirata. Tushbechata v'nechemata. Da'amiran be'olma v'imru amen. Yehei shalama rabba min shemaya. V'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom bimromav. Hu ya'aseh shalom. Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imru amen. May the one who brings peace to the universe bring peace to us, to all Israel, and to all who dwell on earth. And may the memories of our loved ones always be for a blessing. Steve, do you have any announcements? You're muted.
There you go.
I do. And also thank yous. So I think that we're the special ones tonight, because we got to participate in this very intimate, lovely Sabbath service. So I want to thank you, Rabbi, and cantorial soloist Joan, for leading and providing this opportunity for us. I do feel badly for those at Ingleside who tried so hard to get together as a group, but we will address it. We will at least share this service with them. And there are 5 Fridays this month. So when there is a 5th Friday, we have a 5th service. We have a 3rd service of the month on the 5th Friday. I didn't realize it's New Year's Eve, so I forgot all about it. But Rabbi Novik, when he saw the Evite, reminded me. And so we will have a service on New Year's Eve. But I'm not sure whether it's in person or Zoom, because it was already Shabbat. And so I haven't been back in touch with Rabbi Novik. But so join us in spirit or in person, or take an hour off from however you're celebrating the New Year to share the Sabbath service. And again, thank you all for participating. I must say that we had a great meeting of our board of directors this week. And a couple of things came out of that. One is that we will be having a town hall, but a fun town hall with lox and bagels if we can get together, and there'll be 2 of them. So one will be at Ingleside, and Larry will be working with Jean to make that happen. And another one will be outside of Ingleside, and Sandra Wolk and Bonnie will be making that happen. So the idea is community, for us to be able to get together and input and tell us what we're doing right what we're doing wrong, how we can better. And so we haven't gotten the dates yet, but I know that's something we'll look forward to.
Thank you. Also, next month, I forget which date, but it will come out. It'll be a Wednesday night on a week that we're not having a service. I'm going to be doing a workshop in honor of Martin Luther King Day. And what we'll be doing is we will be looking at his I Have a Dream speech. But the way we're going to be looking at it is really interesting. How many of you have ever seen a page of Talmud? Do you know what how it's set up?
Oh, Talmud.
Yeah.
Talmud, yes.
Yeah.
So the way Talmud is set up is that you have a text in the middle, which is the Mishnah, which is the older text, and then you have commentaries underneath it in Aramaic, which is the body of the Talmud, the Gemara, and then around it you have commentary from people who lived all throughout the Middle Ages at different time periods and different centuries even. And it's like there's the Talmud is the original internet with hyperlinks. So it's like you see a word and then you see, well, what did Rashi say in the 12th century? And what did Sforno say in the 15th century, which is then contradicted from someone in the 13th century. I haven't figured out how that works. And it's just, it's kind of mind-blowing and really brilliant and kind of difficult. So the International Hillel Organization put together a page of Talmud-like layout for the I Have a Dream speech. And in the middle of the page is the I Have a Dream speech in black ink, but then highlighted in red are words that come from scripture, from Tanakh, from Torah, because Martin Luther King Jr. was a preacher. He was a minister, so he knew his Bible. And then around the edges of the page is like the connection to where did these words come from. And so it's a Jewish take. So we can find ourselves within the text of I Have a Dream. It's really interesting. And I hope we have well, actually, if it's 5 people or 25 people, it's always such a really interesting way to learn and look at something that we've heard about our entire lives. But now we're going to look at it through a Jewish lens.
And we can do
So I
two
hope-
things. One, our calendar is now on our website with that event, I believe, Susan, correct? And www.hevratshalom.org. And we can of course, there'll be an Evite that comes out, but we can also include that page if you'd like.
Yes.
As a tickler or an appetizer.
Yes,
Yeah,
I was
easier.
going to want to send out the document. It's actually when you print it, it's like 11 by 13. It's one of the big pages. And even then it's kind of small print, but we'll manage. I'll have it up on the screen, but for anyone who wants to print it out themselves, I'll include the link to it so people can print it out. So I'm kind of excited to teach that with everyone. So we are going to conclude our service with Adon Olam on page 156. And then after that, I have just one more thing. So, Joan.
אדון עולם אשר מלך בטרם כל יציר נברא לעת נעשה וחפצו כל אזי מלך שמו נקרא ואחרי ככלות הכל לבדו ימלוך נורא והוא היה והוא הווה והוא יהיה בתפארה והוא אחד ואין שני להמשילו להכבירה בלי ראשית בלי תכלית ולא העוז והמזרע והוא אלי וחי גואלי וצור חבלי בעת צרה והוא ניסי umanos li menat kosi beyom ekra beyado avkid ruchi be'edishan ve'aira ve'im ruchi Giviati Adonai li velo ira.
Thank you. So as this is the last Torah portion in the book of Genesis, and it includes the blessing of children, the laying on of hands, and it invokes the names of our ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, but also Ephraim and Manasseh, who were blessed. I thought I would end this, our last Hevrat Shalom service of 2021, with a blessing for all of you. It's not something I do often, but it felt very appropriate tonight. So, Yisimcha Elohim ke'Ephraim u'Menashe. May God make you like Ephraim u'Menashe. Yisimech Elohim ke'Sarah Rivka Recha v'Leah. May God make you like Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah. Yivarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha. May Adonai bless you and guard you. Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'chuneka. May the Eternal's face shine upon you and be gracious to you. Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom. May the Awesome One's face be lifted up to you and give you peace. I want to wish everyone a Shabbat Shalom, a Shabbat of love and peace and friendship and good health. And I want to wish you all, as they say in Israel, Sylvester Sameach, a happy Sylvester. I forget where that comes from, but that's how they say Happy New Year in the Middle East. And I hope that the year 2022 brings blessings of good health and peace to each of us individually and to the world as a whole. I know all of us could really use it. So Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat
And
Shalom.
thank you,
Shalom.
everyone, for participating tonight. We were small but mighty, just like
Very
the
nice.
Maccabees at Hanukkah.
Very nice service. Thank you.
Thank you,
Shabbat
David.
Shalom.
Thank you.
Shabbat Shalom.
Thank you.
Shabbat
It was a very
Shalom.
nice service.
Bye.
Thanks.